Kneel Before Blog presents Kneel Before Pod.
Hi, I'm Sarah Aviva, and you may have seen me on episodes and TV shows such as Lucifer, iZombie, Supernatural, Unreal, Ice, Aftermath, ... You can see it all on IMDb, and you are listening to Kneel Before Pod.
Hello, and welcome to another mind-bending edition of Kneel Before Pod. I'm your host, Craig McKenzie, or am I? And this discussion is all about the opening episode of Legion's second season. Back for another dose of weirdness. For some reason, they've decided to return for the second season. We have Chris.
Hello.
And Aaron.
Dance number, people.
Dance number. You can't see it, listeners, but we're dancing right now.
We've been practicing. It's taken us months and months since the end of the last season, but we've got this routine nailed.
We have. And you can't see it, but it's amazing.
Spectacular.
Yeah. Insert tap dancing sound effect. I don't know. No tap dancing sound effect. But before we begin, Chris, what are you doing next weekend?
I don't know, Craig. Do you know, I'm in Edinburgh, but I'm looking for something to do.
And by the next weekend, I, of course, mean the 14th and 15th of April, 2018.
Thank God for that, because I was worried you were talking about another weekend.
Well, that weekend is unlike any other, because it is the weekend that Edinburgh Comic Con happens in Edinburgh.
What happens?
Edinburgh Comic Con.
Edinburgh Comic Con. What happens there?
It's a Comic Con where it has guests, a panel hosted by this guy, and Nick, who is on the podcast sometimes. Guests include Dominic Keating, who played Malcolm Reed in Enterprise, and a whole host of other people.
A whole host of other people? Those are my favourite kinds of people.
There are panels, Lego, comics, people in cosplay, comics.
Did you say cosplay?
I said cosplay.
How can I get tickets and find out more?
You can get tickets by following the link that I've put in the show notes that I've forgotten to memorise. Tickets are selling fast, and it is getting close to the end date. By the time you listen to this podcast, whenever you listen to it, it may be gone. But if you're in Edinburgh or have the facility to travel to Edinburgh, come on down to the Edinburgh Conference Centre and you'll find Edinburgh Comic Con. There'll be a lot of people, lots of fun, lots of nerdiness, all under one roof.
That sounds great.
It sounds great. And we suck at advertising.
I can't believe you don't have the web address.
I think I lost a little of my life there.
HeroConventions.com, I think it is.
Do you want to advertise?
That was a particularly special moment.
Do you want to advertise on Kneel Before Pod? You could have your advert right here on this podcast. Get in touch now. Our number is... It's on the tip of my tongue. Our number is... well, it's in the notes.
We can promise that we'll remember some of what your thing is about. We'll forget some of it. But Edinburgh Comic Con can be found on HeroConventions.com. You can also find it on Twitter under Hero Conventions. And yeah, it's an event that I have personally had a lot of fun attending. I've done panels, which includes me speaking in front of people, lots of people, which is, you know, something I apparently can do without throwing up or anything. So it's amazing. There will be a special screening of Deadpool as well, introduced by the guy that plays Colossus, whose name I'm blanking on. But, and of course the whole
People
event...
are totally going to want to come.
Yeah, well. And of course the whole event is organised and run by James Lundy, friend of the podcast, and he's been on once for the Defenders podcast. He was supposed to be on Black Lightning, and there is indeed some audio of him trying to be on Black Lightning, but his computer failed and we weren't able to have him on in that episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, for legal purposes, we're not allowed to show any footage of him on Black Lightning.
Exactly. Anyway, now that advert's out of the way.
Oh, was that all the advert?
Yeah,
that was all of it. Okay,
that was all of it. That was all of it. Yeah. Well, if we have more sponsors, we'll have more practice. Just saying, guys. The more practice, the better.
I'm just too busy building my website on Squarespace to do any of these adverts.
And I'm too busy shaving.
What, a subscription shaving service? That's the best way, I hear.
Yeah, apparently.
Meanwhile, we can't hear Aaron talking because he's too busy cooking with that box of fresh ingredients that gets sent to him weekly with recipe cards. Anything else we're wanting to throw in for free?
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to a good night's sleep on my Casper mattress. That's all of them, isn't it?
I think we've basically ticked the majority of the box off. Yeah. It's
decent. Okay, so last year, was it? Yeah, it was last year. Or was it earlier than last year? At some point in the past, we did 8 podcasts on the first season of Legion, one for each episode. It was quite an endeavour, but we managed it once a week, not with all hands each time, but still, there were eight recordings. This year we're dialing it back a little bit, so we're going to jump 3 episodes per podcast. So this is the first one. We'll return after the 4th episode has aired, then after the 7th, and then after the 10th and final. So we should get a good cross-section of the season. There'll be plenty of weirdness to discuss, and we get to still talk about this unique show. Are you guys feeling excited about more Legion? Are you guys getting excited about more Legion?
Yeah, definitely. Do you know, it is one of these weird shows, and within the first 5 minutes of watching this new episode, I was like, oh yeah, that's how weird this program is. I forgot about that. It's, it is one of the most oddball things. I'm just excited to try and pick my way through it and try and figure something out, but I don't think it's actually designed to be figured out.
And Aaron, are you excited about more Legion?
This is actually one of the only shows I'm actually excited about. There's so much TV that we talk about and watch, but I'm not feeling it anymore. There's so many superhero shows, and they come on, and they've got a journey to go on, and they have to learn this, and they have to learn their powers. It's like, I mean, Black Lightning's good, but I'm not excited about it. But Legion is something else. I don't know what the right word for it is, but I'm happy that something else does describe it. It's actually different to all of the other shows. And how much TV is there out there, by the way? It's different to all of it.
Except maybe Twin Peaks, which I've heard is kind of trippy. I haven't watched it, but people tell me it's quite trippy. So
okay, well, stomp on that then. Let's just edit that from the podcast. Yeah, screw it.
No. We'll leave it in. We'll start with our normal, customary no spoilers. What did you guys think of the first episode of season 2 without spoiling? Although I'm not sure it's possible to spoil it anyway. We'll discuss that. Chris, what are your thoughts on the first episode of season 2?
I think for an opening episode of a season, it sort of throws us right back into the weirdness. It doesn't particularly pick up from where it left off, which I suspected it would in a way, and basically throws us right back to the start with a lot of guesswork as to what's going on again, despite the fact we thought we had kind of figured some of it out by the end of last season. It kind of throws all that away and goes, right, you know nothing, back to the start. So yeah, I quite liked it. I think it just carried on where it left off, and quality wise, story wise, it's sort of thrown a couple of curveballs in there, which is nice. Cool.
Aaron, thoughts on first episode?
I got my dance number. What else could I want? if I'm honest, it's a funky one though. This episode, I was a bit taken aback by where they choose to start it. Obviously I can't say where it is in spoiler, but I was thinking, is this real? And then I thought, but that's the whole show, so it doesn't matter if it's real or not, because they could just completely rewrite everything when it comes to episode 3 anyway, and it would still match the entire theme of the show. So even though I was like, ooh, that was weird, what's going on between the seasons, I guess that's kind of the point. So I got everything I was expecting, and I got my Downs number, so perfectly happy.
Cool. I enjoyed it as well. It was as crazy as it always is. Good dance number, as you say. It picked up some of the threads from season 2. It changed things up a bit. It just gave us more wackiness to play around with. So I enjoyed it. I like this show, and I think the second season isn't losing it what made the first season so interesting, at least so far. Although it's very much a kind of table-setting episode in a way. It builds up how the world has changed and things like that, which this first episode of a second season is going to do. And then, as you said, might not be real anyway. Could all be nonsense. Could all be one big acid trip, and it would fit. So we're ready to dive into the spoilers section of the brain, or the astral plane, the spoiler plane.
Yeah, let's go for that.
Cool. Aaron, you okay with the spoiler plane?
Aye.
Is the spoiler plane like the Batmobile?
No. As an astral plane.
Oh, all right, fair enough.
It's not an actual vehicle.
Oh, I thought the spoiler plane would be sort of our new utility van,
No.
Sort of hear the team arrive on the spoiler plane. No? Okay.
We used to have a spoiler dog, but he died.
in a tragic quad biking accident.
Tragic quad, yeah. So we pick up, apparently, I'm going to use this word a lot probably, apparently a year in the future from the end of the first season. Although David remembers it as being like 5 minutes ago when he was captured by that Pokeball and dragged away. For some reason, an entire year passed, and he doesn't find that out until Sid tells him that.
Or did it?
Or did it? Yeah, that's a good question. That's I don't know.
So, do you know, the thing that's mostly bothering me about the first episode, and not in a good or bad way, but I'm just like, I need to know is it, how much of this is actually going to be seen to be true? Because when it opened, my first thought was hypnosis, the bad guys have got him, using the forms of his friends to try and interrogate him. They want his info, but that's that plot line.
Yeah.
And maybe that would be an old, overused plot line, so they wouldn't use it because it would just be a repeat of the past.
It's also what they did last season.
And I've sort of talked myself out of that from the perspective of two characters who weren't David met and had a discussion at least 2 or 3 times throughout it, which makes me think surely you couldn't see that if it was entirely his creation, unless I suppose he was looking down on it like some sort of god. But I don't really get how they joined Division 3. How did that happen?
Although they're deliberately not answering that question, I think.
Yes.
Well, there was only a very short sort of line saying that Sid and Melody convinced the leaders that they were no longer a threat, but that seemed to gloss it over entirely, didn't it?
Yeah.
For now.
I want more from that. And I trust the show that's the thing I used to say constantly throughout Legion Season 1. I trust this show to give me good answers. It did all the way through the first series, so I'm not worried about it. That's what I'm going to say. I'm not positive or negative. It's got me a mystery to look into, but I want to hear more of that.
I also like the PowerPoint presentation that explains why Division 3 is called Division 3, and it's because there was a Division 1 and a Division 2 who they all have different purposes. One of them is research, another one's I forget
strategy.
Strategy, yeah, and Division 3 are like action, I guess.
Yeah, pointy stick.
Yeah, they're the tip of the spear and all that stuff. And they're led by a guy who wears a wicker basket on his head.
Well, it's sort of Lord Buckethead, wasn't it? He obviously didn't win the election down south, when he was standing for an MP, so now he's taken over Division 3. That's the only thing I can think.
Well, the government have to put him somewhere. I think his name was Admiral... I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. I'll sound racist. He's Admiral something, who wears a wicker basket on his head.
I'll try it. It's Fukuyama?
Yeah, go for that.
Let's go for that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Admiral Bucket. Let's go for that.
Admiral Basket.
Basket, yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite interesting. And I quite like the sort of little background details, like the fact that the Shadow King can't control children. That's quite an interesting little detail, so they keep kids around.
Well, hang on. I don't know if accuracy is a thing here that we're going to be able to pursue, but didn't they just say he couldn't infect children?
Yeah, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, infect
well, he was able to influence David from when he was very, very young. So I don't think the not being able to control children things
that has something to do with his powers, though, rather than him actually being young or old or whatever. So, or at least I think it is. It's more his abilities that are the thing.
Either way, their guards wouldn't be left a gibbering mess if he turned up. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and then you have the robot women as well. With the robot voices. Those are pretty weird. Not sure what that's about.
Well, there's one thing I was thinking was, as this is from the perspective of someone who doesn't really like or watch horror, though, so it might be from a rather innocent perspective, but I found they did a good job in this episode of creeping me out, especially when I heard I've never in all my life heard so many people chattering their teeth at once, and that did put me on edge. That was a good idea.
Yeah.
The use of sound through this was quite sinister, actually. Even just the kettle whistling, which I know is like a cliche that's been in so many movies in the past of the whistling kettle. However, they pull it off here to just something that properly creeped me out. But yeah, that with the chittering teeth.
Yeah, it was unsettling, and it's quite interesting to think that Oliver and the Shadow King are out there doing stuff. And in their wake, they're leaving like chattering teethed individuals who cross them and that stuff. Revealing that he wants to find his body as well. That is in the Shadow King wants to find his own body. It's nothing at the moment. I don't know why he would want to do that, or why it would want to do it. I don't think it's a.
Well, we were told it's because if he gets his body back, then he has almost limitless power. As he is, he's really powerful as effectively a mutant, but if he gets his body back, then he'll be even more powerful. Presumably he's then completely a match for David in any means, if not more powerful.
Possibly. Yeah, well, they did say that, yeah, so I don't know.
Still thinking of the atmosphere, though, just to go back to that for a point. You said the sound was good, Chris, but the visuals as well. I think there's a few things in there that by themselves might not necessarily be considered massively innovative. I don't know that I'm going to be able to claim that, but just these simple little shots, like where you've got it talking to the Admiral and he's standing in front of this crazy painting, which is somebody looking up through an American set of flat blocks, and you've got these staircases, the fire stairs going around the outside, but then they zoom the camera in on David and it creates this look like he's falling possibly down but possibly up through the buildings.
Yeah.
And I think you don't necessarily look at that and go, oh, that's an amazing shot in that sort of pure sense, but I think when you're already sucked in to a state where everything is slightly creepy, it's things like that are adding to that constantly as you're going. And I think I saw quite a few little things like that placed all the way through the show, just to make sure that you were always that little bit on edge. And I know that was one of the... I honestly can't remember now the individual scenes of season 1 as to whether that was a thing then, but it's definitely a thing throughout this episode, and one that kept me feeling the same level of slightly creeped out throughout the whole episode. I thought they kept it up all the way.
There's all the corridors and everything are weird shapes. The design is very, very odd. It's all that. I mean, there were two sort of blatant things that properly threw me in this episode. And talking about noises, I don't know if we're wanting to cover this right now, but I suppose I'll jump right in on it. But the story of Albert's leg, I shall call it, is was particularly
brutal.
Brutal. The noise of sawing.
Oh my God!
Through the plastic curtain, I can still hear it in my head now, and
Yep.
Oh my God, that just Albert deciding that his leg wasn't his anymore is just
Even just having you describe that without any gory detail was enough to I did a whole sort of spine shake and head twist then, which we can't put on the podcast, but it was definitely there.
And there was a lot of, well, not a lot, but there was enough of these kind of little, it seems pointless asides, you know, just where they would just go into some random vignette about something. The whole narration about eggs, there being a metaphor for madness and the maze inside the head sort of thing, which incidentally was narrated by John Hamm.
I thought I recognised that voice.
Yeah, I recognised it too, and then I looked it up, and it's John Hamm. And it seems pointless in the sense that it doesn't necessarily add anything to the episode as such, but I feel like it's important thematically and may become more important later on.
Well, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's the statement, it doesn't add anything to the episode. It probably want to clarify that to say it doesn't necessarily add anything directly to the foreground plot, but it definitely adds to the episode because it kept you in that frame of feeling. And Legion has always been a piece that you can feel as much as follow the ins and outs of the plot with an intelligence. It's also got that clear emotional side to it, which is another thing I think that I enjoy about it, just because it's another level to enjoy it on, which some of the other shows that we're watching at the moment, they're not trying to do that. That's not their thing, but it's a welcome addition. Yeah,
and you had kind of a representation of the overriding message of the show as well, with the whole butterfly thing. Was whatever his name was dreaming of a butterfly, or was a butterfly dreaming of being this person? And that's like the whole notion of identity, and do we really know ourselves? And the show is all about that, because David has no idea what's real and what isn't.
Yes.
You know, all the time. He appears in a random situation, and people tell him, "Yep, this is what's happening. We need you to do this," and then he does it, and then he winds up in some other layer of reality. So, who knows? You know, he doesn't know. We don't know. It's almost like David is the audience, because we just have no idea what's going on, and neither does he.
He is a massively unreliable narrator, which I think is what makes this interesting from other shows, where you see it from your protagonist's perspective, but they're always in the right, if you know what I mean. It's very rare that you see it where they're in the wrong or being misled in a way. But with this, it's like everything that you see, you question on screen. Every sort of instruction that he's getting from someone else, you're like, is that them? Is that not them? Is this the way? The voices in the head again. You know, you're imagining this is him getting a lot better at controlling his powers and being able to sort of read people's minds, but at the same time, is he hearing the right thing? Is he getting sort of little whispers from elsewhere? I mean, it does seem, that he's still a bit under the influence and a bit confused.
There's also a layer of mystery to David himself when he claims to not remember the last year. There's a suggestion that people don't believe him for a kickoff, and there's also little hints here and there that he does remember more than he's saying. I mean, he does talk about remembering being on a roof garden or something like that, in little flashes here and there. But I wonder if there is more to his year jump than we know about, and that he's letting on. And it wouldn't be outside the show for, David to be compartmentalising his own memories, because he's done that before. But I wonder if we are getting the full story. At least from his point of view.
Oh, I think we're definitely not.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely going to be bits revealed, but it is that unreliable narration thing where, as we're getting stuff revealed to us, is that a true reveal? Is it a fake reveal? Is it it's whatever they want to paint it to be, really, at the time, because that's all you've got to go from is the evidence that you've seen, and then it starts to become who you believe.
Yeah, and whether we'll get definitive answers by the end of the season, who knows? But one thing I do know is that I do want to work for Division 3 after seeing their canteen.
I was going to add that to my list of things that creeped me out. The little floating boat canteen. What the hell is that? Does anyone sort of live normally in this particular universe, or is that just the norm? That's in this particular place. The norm is that you would have a weird sushi boat canteen.
It's a good question. Aaron, what did you think of the boat canteen? I think it's worth remarking.
Actually, it was when I first saw it, was one of the things that made me think, and that proves this isn't real. But it totally doesn't. It does seem to be that, yeah, they just have their own version of a sushi counter and they use boats on water instead of some modern conveyor belt, which, yeah, in their world seems to make perfect sense, so why not?
Yeah. I thought it was cool. I'd quite like to have my food delivered to me on the back of a boat.
It was a nice thing. I'm not going to tell you it was my favourite thing in the whole episode, but yeah, it was a nice little thing.
It's just a way to legion it up and make it weirder, isn't it? I mean, even the building, the design of the building itself is just that weird sort of honeycomb-shaped building. And then when they get into the lift, I was like, oh, they've went into a random empty room. No, it's a lift. It's the biggest lift in the world. It's like someone's office. And the
journey lasts as long as the conversation. Just like any TV lift, really.
It is a complete commitment, though, I have to admit. It's a show that has said, right, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to put it in every single scene. We're not going to just try and convince you that we've got a little idea, a little theme here, and we put it in when we remember, and when we don't remember, it's just plot. It is actually, no, this is everywhere. Somebody has actually gone round each bit, prop department, costume department, lighting, sound, everybody's been said, right, guys, this is what we're going to do. All of you have to do this, and there's nobody that misses a trick on that.
Yeah, did you see the hand balloons outside the building as well? Like the green hands that were pointing at stuff. I think they were balloons.
Oh, right.
Yeah. There were certainly hands. I don't know if they were actually balloons or not, but it seemed like they were on strings of some sort.
I would need to rewatch to have a look at that. I missed that one as I was looking at everything.
There's so much stuff. Just so much stuff. It's just because I happened to pause it at that point because I can't remember why I happened to pause it at that point, but I did. And
do you know what I'd be curious about with this, though? So I was thinking it's every department that's been asked to do this. I wonder with these things sometimes how much of it is somebody's, and I hate this word, but I can't think of a better one at the moment, how much of it is someone's vision, and they say, you have to make this real, and how much of it is everybody been told, yeah, this is your remit, you just go and do it, and like everybody's improvising. Because there's little bits that make me wonder. I didn't see the balloons, but there was odd little bits that I did see, like in the dance battle. It's Aubrey Plaza licks one of her supporting dancers, and I don't know why I noticed that. But to me, that was like, what the hell? Why did you do that? That makes no sense to me. But of course, it makes perfect sense in character. She's just insane. But surely that wasn't choreographed. The dance instructor didn't say, right, at this point, Aubrey, I want you to lick the person next to you, and make it this big thing. So is that an indication that people were just like, right, everybody just go and improvise all of this? And some dude said, I've got these balloons, I've got to get them in somewhere. But to be fair, they fitted. They must have, they didn't seem out of place to you.
Yeah. I guess the more out of place something seems, the less out of place it is in this show. I don't know.
Maybe.
But sometimes I wonder if it's just being odd for the sake of being odd. And, there is a lot of imagery and stuff that, it ties into the overall just kind of aesthetic of the show, but I think in some cases they are just being bizarre just to be bizarre. But
if everybody's improvising, then there's certainly going to be the danger of that. But that's the reason that I picked out as my example, as say Aubrey Plaza licking one of her dance supporting dancers, because to me it might just seem like it was. You might think that was her just being odd for the sake of being odd, but to me that actually was fitting in with the rest of the episode of trying to creep out the audience. Because that did it to me. The idea that some stranger would just lick me in the face, that added to me to being completely creeped out. So I thought that matched this theme tell me it's not in the plot, and I get you, fine. They're never going to be able to turn around and say, she did that for this reason in her youth, it blah, 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 nonsense. It was just, no, this is the theme of creeping you out, carried into every moment.
Although it is in character as well, because we saw her parading around being all seductive last season when, and I think there was a lot of black and white, but I'm thinking about she was dancing about in the mental asylum.
Oh, Chris, I need your input here. Craig has just told me that it's in character because she's being seductive, and licking random strangers' faces is where I am. So can we link those two things together? Craig thinks seduction is licking strangers' faces. Has he ever done it to you, or just need to ask?
I was wondering why he was doing that the other day when we were out in the cinema, but now I kind of know. He was obviously, trying to fend off a rival or something.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
No, I'm glad we placed that. That's good. I'm happy, and I'll carry on.
That's all right. It's fine. It's
more reason to think I'm a creep. Very great,
We'll add it to the list. I think it's the character being provocative and just like you said earlier on, just mad. That character, and Aubrey Fraser's act is still great. I mean, I don't think we've seen the best of her from this season yet, because last season she was just completely off the wall.
She's hardly in this episode, though.
Oh, yeah, it's barely in here at all, but you know that she's going to feature a lot further on.
Yeah. The main purpose of this episode, in terms of that character, was to remind us that she's still there, and that she's out with Oliver, and has inhabited Oliver, and that's going to cause something. One thing I thought, last season they seemed to be leaning fully into the X-Men connection, or at least the Xavier connection. So far this season they seem to be going out of their way to get away from that. There was no real mention of his father or anything like that, so I wonder if it was they were chancing it to say, if we get a season 2, we'll ask Patrick Stewart to come on, and then they asked him and he's like, nah. So they have to get away from that as quickly as possible.
Well, he did mention his father, though. They did say he's the one that brings it up when they start giving you your, in case you've forgotten who Farouk is, here's your quick reminder. And David does say, yes, my father defeated him. So they've only said as much as they've previously done. It's not like they've ever really said they've never said Charles Xavier before. They've only ever referred to the father. So,
but they did lean on it quite heavily towards the end of the season by showing the wheelchair, by showing the bald head on the chalkboard and all that stuff. Well, yeah, but
in how many of the episodes did they really lean on it that heavily? Is it just because you remember the later episodes? They didn't have the wheelchair in the background of every single episode. No. I think it's too early to say that that's gone. I mean, you might be right. Maybe it has gone and they're not going to do it, but I think it's too early at the moment because they completely changed the setting. They've moved it from their previous base to the new base. They've changed the bad guy from the original bad guy and now the allies. They've completely rebuilt everything, and it would take time to go through that and to give us all the stuff that makes it Legion. I think it's probably just a bit too early to say whether they are or are not going to use a side point as the X-Men.
Yeah, I'm completely with you on that, Aaron. I think it's too early to rule it out. And, I mean, they have hinted that it was him that hid the body in the first place. So you've still got the potential of a tie-in. Whether it'll be Patrick Stewart or not, I've got no idea. However, the fact that there's still the chance that there'll be a connection there, or a hunt, or a clue at least on the way to the body, that might hint or might confirm. I know it's almost confirmed pretty much from all the hints that they've dropped, but you just got to wait and see, I think.
Yeah, and I liked catching up with the other characters as well. They all seem well placed in Division 3. They found good places for them. They put Kerry in tactical. Carrie's on like the research side of things. Sid and Melanie, they're doing strategy, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just everyone seems in a good place.
I think Melanie's just doing whatever the hell was coming out of that elephant's nose.
Well, there's that.
I don't know if she's doing a lot of strategy.
But that's kind of her place, though. But yeah, she is vaping a lot. Vaping elephant vapor.
Yeah. Elephant vapor, elephant, yeah.
Yeah. And I like the Cerebro scene. I mean, it's the best thing I can use because it is something that enhances his mental abilities, and the description of what was inside it was really funny as well. You know, with strawberry extract and stuff. The solution he had to immerse himself in.
It was just the quickly delivered line, "I'm going to find him from inside a daiquiri," that made me properly chuckle. It's like there wasn't tons of ridiculous humour in this show, but that line was just delivered so quickly and over. It was just
And it's what you have to be unobstructed by like fabrics or something like that, and he's thinking, I have to be naked, and it's just cutting through that. Yeah, it was funny, and that's where we get the dance number. It's like a memory. Or it's supposed to be a memory that he's remembering, I think.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah. For some reason, at some point in the last year, he met up with the Shadow King to dance.
Well, I don't think Legion has ever been literal, and ever. Presumably, it's going to be at some point. He met up with Farouk, and they had a fight. Presumably a full-on battle involving collateral damage humans, who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they would have had the power of both of them have the mental power to use the people in the fight. So you might be that they do in a later episode. The two of them were mentally controlling random dancers in a club and getting them to go at their enemy. It could actually be that you've got this really beautiful artsy number that then turns into this horror show as these teenagers start laying into each other, and that's how David prefers to remember it. He prefers to remember it as this choreographed dance-off where nobody really gets hurt, and at the end it's a bit of a standoff and they walk away without any trouble. And then you come into episode 4 and it's just people just twatting each other with glasses, shattering bottles, and there's punching to the face. It could end up being this horrible shock moment that we're going to see. So I have to assume it's going to be that. But that would be great. I totally want it to be something like that. I think that would be a really good thing. But David then maybe misremembering it.
Yeah.
To the extent that then he's so emotionally involved still, though, that presumably his emotions push that power out into the room and drag Carrie into the dance as well. I could believe that. It's just he can't control his powers, so his memories are making you dance to it too. And that also would seem to make perfect sense within the world of Legion.
Yeah, I think they can almost get away with doing anything because it is just so surreal and messed up. And I noticed they did this similar. We talked about imagery earlier, but they did a similar thing that they did in season 1 by, everything is so looks so deliberate, but there's also a kind of basic quality to it. Most of the rooms are 1 or 2 defined colours, and there's a simplicity to the locations which I don't know that it tells us anything, but I just think it's interestingly distinctive.
I'm not sure I know what you mean, actually. Simplicity to the locations.
So they'll be in whenever he's in a room, it tends to be, a big white room or a big red room or whatever colour they decide. Maybe there's spatterings of extra colour roundabouts.
Oh, this is his imagination, you mean? His created... Yeah.
Yeah, it seems to kind of feed into the real world sometimes as well, or what we think is the real world.
Well, I think they do that on purpose with their design, in that you can usually tell when he's in his memory because if you've got that more idealized room, and then when he's out in the real world, for strange reasons, the only room I can think of is the room Melanie was sucking the elephant, for want of a better phrase. That had a lot of stuff in
this
it.
Podcast.
I don't know. You can't put that on. That's a bad one. You'll never get it past anything. But that room had a lot of stuff in it, didn't it? It had her stuff in it. It had decorations in it. I thought they'd done I thought they'd specifically. What else can I think of? The science rooms that Carrie's in. It has all of his gear out, and there's machines everywhere. I'm sure there
They
are.
look kind of dingy, yeah.
So they give you a room full of equipment or full of material, full of decoration when you're in the real world, but when you go into David's head, it's purposefully romantic, it's purposely simplified. The things that are there are the bed that he wants to use, enough said, and then there's flowers on the wall and a nice picture because it's the romantic image of a room.
You can normally tell, or at least you're led to believe that you know when he's in and out of his sort of dream state that they share together. You know, because you saw elements of that last year, but the sort of bit that hints to me that, you know, possibly there's still a bit of a connection between him and you know, the king, is that you've got that sort of scene of the horrible, creepy duck creature or whatever the hell that is crawling across the floor in his little dream state that sort of hints to me that it's still being manipulated there. I don't know. Is that what you have taken away from that as well?
Isn't that so that little thing, I don't know what to call it, the little black ooze creature.
Yeah.
That's the representation of delusion, isn't it? Because that's what the narrator's telling you when it comes out. And then you see that thing usually in the narration, but then there's this one point when you see, I think, is it David? He's either in bed by himself or he's in bed asleep with Sid, and that little black ooze is crawling to the bed, and then it either vanishes into him or it vanishes under the bed. But that's the other bit that made me think then, right, so the delusion is in David's head, so he is clearly deluded.
Yeah.
Now, what I couldn't quite work out, and maybe there's not enough information for that yet, is does that delusion mean that everything we're currently watching is fake? It is actually Division 3 has built him a new world to live in so they can try and get information from him? Or is the delusion the state of mind that he's in where he can't remember having a massive fight with the Shadow King in a club? He just remembers it as a dance-off, and that's the delusion that in this case it would be the Shadow King has built for him. So I don't know who's built this delusion yet, and I don't know therefore what it means, but as I say, maybe we just can't know that yet.
I mean, another part of the potential delusion is the fact that it's been a year and Sid's just willing to pick up where they left off. You know, they have a minimal conversation before it's like, let's just resume this relationship. And it does feel kind of jarring as well that, you know, after a year it seems like they just blend right back into the group so easily. So that could
but to him, of course, as he says, he's only been away for a couple of minutes, so he doesn't feel any trouble getting back into the group because it's the group. Yeah, he only saw them a few minutes ago from his perspective, but from their perspective, it's been much longer than that. And Sid does seem a little bit too accepting of the fact that he's back without really getting answers to her questions as well. So again, I don't know. It's the delusion could be that. Well, yeah, exactly. There is no guarantee that she is the real Sid yet, so that could be purposeful. And she can possess cats now, or she can switch bodies with cats. Well, that's something that. Well, I was about to say makes sense, but I don't know if that's the right phrase or not. But you know, if you're someone who is developing your powers, you're going to do it in some way, and maybe it's a good idea not to experiment on your fellow humans. You know, maybe you do practice on other life forms first. That, you know, I could see that. That's a thing. Yeah, I just thought it was quite funny in itself that, you know, I've been inside a cat. See what else she'll become over the course of the series. Maybe she'll become that elephant. I have no way to respond to that. You have to move on. Yeah, so this episode gives us some information. It kind of... I think the fact that the show's been off the air for so long hurts it in a bit, because I was partially struggling to remember what had went on last season. Maybe I should have rewatched it before this came on, but I've not had time. But sometimes it doesn't do a good enough job of reminding you of the important beats from last season. So I remembered that Oliver and the Shadow King had buggered off into the sunset
themselves. But there was just other little things that I'd forgotten about. Mostly when it came to the internal character relationships and things like that.
So, whereas I totally get your point, and I do understand that, I'm going to completely disagree, because the one thing that I have always liked Legion for throughout the first episode was the first season, was this lack of a need to use exposition. There was some, they did put some in. Even in this episode here, he makes sure to let you know that it was his father that defeated Farouk, but they don't actually really do big long essays. And honestly, the less of that, the better for me. In something that's supposed to be a mystery, in something that is as much theme as it is plotting, for full brain thought plotting, I don't want to have wasted time given over to these explanations, even these reminders. Do you know what? If I want those reminders, I got Wikipedia, I've got IMDb. I could, as you say, heaven forbid, go and rewatch the first one. There's so many ways of doing it. I don't want them to lose any time. And to me, it was always a bit more of an intelligent show that way. It didn't say throughout the episode, and you need to remember this, and you need to do. And in other shows, that's appropriate. In a show like Supernatural, you don't mind it. You get the reminder, you need what you know, you're in for a bit of fun, and you just want to have your bit of fun in your episodes. They are purposely standalone episodes, and you enjoy them for that. But with Legion, it's a piece. It's an ensemble piece. All of the episodes you take together as a unit, and you could almost watch it as one big, long film. And I think Season 2, I want to see the same thing with that. I want to have this big, long piece that doesn't lose time. If there's anything in it that I don't get, well, that's kind of the point. I'll work it out. And I loved that for Season 1. I got to chuck out theories. They're all wrong. I didn't get anything right. But I had so much fun trying to think about what was going on. That was the enjoyment to me. I don't want signposts. I honestly think they'd be in the way.
To indulge you on one of your theories, one that got expanded a little bit in this episode was you had another Alice in Wonderland reference. You had a little Alice in Wonderland poem.
Oh, how did I miss that? Bring it back to me.
There was the talk of take one bean and you'll shrink, take another bean and you'll grow 10 feet tall, and all that. All an Alice in Wonderland reference, and I know that you were collecting your Alice in Wonderland references the last time round.
Thank you. I'd actually forgotten that. Well, see, there's Craig's point then. I'd forgotten I was collecting Alice in Wonderland references, so I'm going to start up again now. Thank you. That's good.
No, it's all right. I mean, I'm kind of with you both in one way. I'd forgotten little character developments from the first season. However, I think because of the way this picks up, with him just missing a massive chunk of time, it doesn't pick up directly from where it left off. So it kind of leaves you going, oh, right, well, it doesn't really matter how it finished because this is where we are now anyway.
Yeah.
Part of me had even forgot, oh, yeah, he did disappear in that weird orb at the end. Because it was just like literally the last few seconds that he gets whisked away in this orb. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's how that finished. Okay. And I suppose then when we see him, he arrives in his sort of test tube and he doesn't remember where he was.
Yeah.
We don't even know where they collected him really. So it's I kind of get where you're both coming from in that respect, and I think there's elements that have been forgotten. They'll do little reminders, but the thing is, with this film, with this TV show having a sort of unreliable narrator and unreliable truths, it's very difficult for them to go a previously on, because I suppose that would be like establishing already known facts, and we don't really know any facts at the beginning of any of the episodes, or even at the ends,
Yeah. I'm wondering, the Shadow King as a villain facilitates all this craziness, in some way, because his function is to get inside people's heads and play around with it. So, he makes David essentially unable to trust his own mind, which, since he's the vehicle for the audience to look into this world, that's fine. I wonder if and when they defeat the Shadow King, what does the show become then? I mean, if there is a season 3, what do they have to ditch some of this unreliableness, or do they keep it? And how do they keep it? Or is it maybe it's just the Shadow King has destroyed David's brain so much that that it's just permanently in a state of what the hell's going on?
I mean, I think one of the ways that they could do it is the exact same way that they've done here. I mean, obviously it's a bit doubled over here, but they're doing the sort of time jump and going, well, where have you been? Oh, I don't really know, and then leaving you guessing. We wondered how they were going to depower him in this, because I think our discussion at the end was, well, if he's got full control of his powers now, then he's going to be unstoppable. However, in this, you go, well, he's still not quite in control, and we don't know if what he's seeing is real, or his interactions are real, or how other people have been influenced. I mean, what's brought all of them together? As far as we're aware, they're not meant to be together, and it's been a bit of brainwashing mind treatment. And, it's just taken longer to work on him than everyone else. Who knows?
Yeah, and they mention how powerful he is in this episode as well. It's directly mentioned that he's, immensely powerful. I think it's more down to the fact that Division 3 are somewhat scared of him and would rather work with him than against him, but it could all be one big manipulation. He might still be in the asylum for all we know.
That would be the end, the very, very end of the series. He wakes up in the same asylum where he started.
Yeah, wondering what's went on.
Yeah. Don't, please, no.
Aaron, do you have any thoughts on kind of what the show does when it doesn't have the Shadow King? Because it does rely heavily on that.
Trying to predict the future of something that is by its very nature chaos. No, I don't. I don't know. I don't honestly know what they can possibly do after this. But to me, it's not really a big deal. If they give me 3 seasons with him facing the Shadow King, and then they defeat him at the end, fine. And then they call it, and they don't do a season 4 or something like that. That's fine for me. I don't need things to go on to ever. I could enjoy it. It would actually be a show that I would watch multiple times through, which is not going to be possible with something like Supernatural. Honestly, I bought that stuff and I'm thinking, am I ever going to watch this through all the way from the beginning again? I kind of thought I would, but I don't know if that's possible now.
Maybe
I won't survive it.
Ends, you'll just spend several months of your life just immersing yourself in the wonder that is Supernatural.
I'm building my retirement right now as we speak. But with Legion, if they gave me just 2-3 seasons, focused seasons on a specific plot, and that was all we got, that's fine. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that as well. It's just, I suppose, I never want to see it become too traditional in that sense. Becoming linear and starting to make sense and all that stuff.
No, well, if they ever started to go with more. I don't want to sound insulting, but I think I'm going to anyway, but too bad, who cares? If they ever start to go down a more simplistic humour route, like things like Legends of Tomorrow, and it is just about the immediate hit of a quick gag and a pun, then it's over. They've lost their trick already. They need to keep it, Legion, what it is. Wacky, crazy, a mystery. You're trying to work out what's going on. It needs to stay there. And if they can't hold that, I hope they call it a day and walk away with something they can be proud of.
Yeah, well, Noah Hawley did Fargo before this, and I think he ended it like there was a defined endpoint built in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure there was a defined endpoint built into this. I think they seemed confident enough there'd be a second season by ending the first season on a cliffhanger. Equally, if there wasn't a second season, it would just be one of those, oh well, it's still out there, nothing's resolved. Cool. So it could be that this is meant to be the last season anyway.
I'd love it if they do have an actual game plan for this. But the scary thing is that networks get a hold of these things and then go, oh yeah, I know you've got a free series plan, but you can do a 4th, can't you? You can just we'll give you a gob more money and you can go and do this and this and we'll let you film here and you could just do stretch out to 4, and then they manage to stretch out to 4 and they go, I bet you've got a 5th in you, haven't you? You just leave it a little bit open ended and we'll see what we can do. And, I'd love it if the showrunners and the writers have actually sat there and went, right, here is the plan, we're sticking to it, and it will wrap up at this point. Because I think that's when programs sort of go off the rails. I mean, things like The Walking Dead and everything at the moment, it's like, does anyone actually have a plan of how these things are going to end? I'm guessing not. It's just going to be, at some point, this will get cancelled and you will never find out what they want to do.
Yeah, there is that problem with network TV shows and stuff. It depends on ratings as well and all that. All that stuff I have no control over. But it does seem like an endpoint would be built into this based on what this showrunner's done before anyway. It certainly would have certainly there seems to be a structured idea of what's going on, because every episode is, as we mentioned in the last run of podcast, is distinctly a chapter of something, so there's and even then it was this episode had volumes within that chapter. Was it volume? Was that the heading they used at different points?
I can't remember if it was volumes or chapters, actually.
I thought it was chapters, which caught me out to start with, because the names of the episodes are chapter something, and I think throughout it also said chapter 1, 2, and 3, which, as I say, confused me a bit at the start, but then I realised it was just two separate things.
Yeah. Most people won't see the name of the episode. It's just you got to call it something.
Yeah.
Friends logic. The one with the whatever happened in the episode. Yeah. So this is the 9th episode, so it's chapter 9. That'll do. Yeah.
Right. I've waited long enough here, people. We haven't properly discussed the dance number, so I think I'm going to have to interrupt whatever schedule we've got here and have to bring it up.
Schedule? What are you looking at?
Schedule? Okay, whatever plan was going on in your head, it needs to stop right now, and we need to bring out the dance number.
Sure. It was good. It was what I'd come to expect. It was insane.
I was going to say, is that it? You're just going to give me good? Come on, I want more.
It was good. More. I thought it was a great dance number. I was really, really hoping they were going to do one in this episode, because I thought, it's the first episode back, surely we get a little random dance number in here. And when they went into the club and he stepped back and all the dancers were there around him, I was like, here it is, bring it on. And it was, very good.
I think they kept teasing us with it. They kept teasing us with it throughout the episode, because they kept alluding to the club. You kept seeing the club in some way or another, and then it was like, oh, is it going to be now? Going to be now? Nope. No, yay.
Yeah, but that's just the brilliance of it. You know the dance number has to be there. You've possibly seen the trailer, or you might have avoided it, but if you've seen the trailer, you know the dance number that's coming is in the club, and they're like, oh, is it at the club? Oh, no, it isn't. Oh, here's the club again. Oh, no, it isn't. And you know it's coming, and then they hit you with it, and it's nicely delivered.
Yeah. I liked that Jermaine Clement was involved as well.
It was slightly caught me out, actually, when I was watching them. I was thinking, all of them are going to do a dance number, and Audrey Plaza's just going to show them up completely, because I assume she's got dance training based on everything we saw in season 1. And I thought, are the other two really going to be able to dance with her and hold the line? And to be fair to them, they never do anything as dramatic as she's done before, but to be fair to them, I thought that both of the other dancers did pretty good jobs. Fair play to, I've forgotten the name of the guy already, is it Jermaine Clement?
Yeah.
I think he's not old. He's not old by any means, but he's a little bit older than the others. I think he's my age, and I know that I couldn't stand up anything close to somebody like Aubrey Plaza when I was trying to, if I was trying to do it, and they do. And the worst thing of it is the fact that in the preview, the trailer, I think he does something like he does this amazing sort of scissor kick, and it's not in the episode. And I thought, no, why are you not doing that? That's like Jermaine Clement doing a scissor kick, and you don't put it in the main episode. He almost gets to it, and they cut it. And I thought, why did they cut that out? Especially because it's in the trailer. You've shown me this brilliant move that he does.
How do you know it's been cut out, and we're not just going to see it later?
I guess maybe they'll show it again. I think they don't normally revisit their dance numbers, though.
But it seems like this plot point, for want of a better phrase, is going to be important, because it is all about this, the club memory or whatever it is. And I'm just rewatching the dance number quietly, like on mute here, and there's a bit where there's a bunch of people lying on the floor around David, about 2 minutes in, and it kind of looks like they're dead. Yes. It doesn't look like part of the number, so Is that a sense of reality creeping in, maybe?
Well, this is what I mean by I think it's going to have to be. I mean, it is blatantly a dance battle. I mean, when they're in there, all three of them are doing a dance battle. And it's interesting that it's the three of them, actually. It's not just two of them.
Yeah.
It's not just David against the Shadow King. It's David, Oliver, and the Shadow King. I don't know if there's going to be any meaning to that, but it was very noticeable that the three of them were separate. And the show in the previous season has done quite a good job of using the dance number to get a point across.
Yeah.
You know, Aubrey Plaza does a victory dance through David's mind at one point.
Yeah.
And it's a proper celebration. And then in the latest episodes, there's the horror of the Bordello number where she's toying with them, and it gets that extra horror with the black and white, you know. So they really try and use it. So I'm thinking then if they've separated them all out into some sort of triple dance number, but maybe that does mean something about Oliver trying to fight his way clear as well. But the way it has to be that dance battle is representative of some real fight that occurs, in which case you seeing the dancers put down onto the ground by, well, all of them, to me says collateral damage. All of them are doing something that damages, hurts the people around them that are just caught up in this.
Yeah, could be. The coordination is off the scale here as well. It's ridiculous. It's just... everyone is super coordinated. And it looks like it's the actors actually doing it because you see a lot of their faces. And
yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean by I think they actually managed to hold their own. All three of them did a good dance number. I don't, maybe for all I know, they've all got dance training and actually they could all do it, but I don't know enough about any of them to say that's true, but whether they do or do not, it was a proper dance number. It was a proper choreography. It wasn't just people dancing around you on stage like some rubbishy pop star. They were all involved. They all interacted with their supporting dancers in a way that you could believe then, if it does turn out to be a real battle, the movements will have a corresponding meaning in the real scene. And as I say, therefore that's proper choreography, that's meaningful, that's powerful, it has a purpose.
Yeah. Was anyone else reminded of Deadpool with David's T-shirt? It's kind of the colour scheme is very Deadpool with the black and red, although it's two triangles. But I don't know. I kind of thought it might have been some kind of Deadpool reference, albeit a really subtle one.
It's a cool looking T-shirt. I've got to give you that. It wasn't. Yeah, I mean, colour scheme maybe towards the Deadpool thing, but I just thought it was quite a cool looking T-shirt.
It's like if you turned his face into two triangles. Deadpool's out soon. Could be a very subtle reference. Very, very subtle. But yeah, I thought it was a cool T-shirt. I'll give him that. On the dance number note, yeah, I don't know what dance training they've got, but I thought, yeah, very, very clearly well, a lot. yeah. Well, let's go with tons of rehearsal time and probably did it well at drama school and stuff. Let's go with that. Jermaine Clement, he was Flight of the Conchords. They did a bit of dancing about, didn't they? Let's go with yes. Yes. I'm sure Aubrey Plaza's got stage experience, which includes dancing and stuff. And Dan Stevens, who knows? Yeah, well, he did Beauty and the Beast. That was dancing on stilts. So he had to dance in Beauty and the Beast. Yeah, and people were underwhelmed.
I'm just checking out Bill Irwin, who plays Carrie as well, because I've just remembered that it's not just the three of them, because the power of David transfers back over into, for want of a better description, the real world, and Carrie's caught up in it. He does a pretty good few steps as well. And I'm just running down his Wikipedia to see if he's done a few things. I think it says he's been on Broadway, so actually maybe he said, if you're going to do a dance number, I can do a few little steps in here. And they said, oh, brilliant.
If you're doing a dance number, I want in.
Yeah. Am I the only one that's not rewatching the dance number? Is that?
Yes, that's true. During this podcast, I've actually rewatched the dance number about 5 times.
I've rewatched it once. Oh, Aubrey Plaza's taking on new challenges, which dancing is apparently outside her comfort zones. So they were
really?
Well, that was last year though, so it's maybe in her comfort zone, and
Even then, the dance number she did last year, that was outside her comfort zone. Good grief.
Yeah. Plaza worked with choreographers Vanessa Young and Janine Gorgiev, who worked on previous Legion sequences to get the scene just right. She had ideas of her own concerning how the scene would work, but had little prior dancing experience.
Good grief.
She could only recall a scene from Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates. I think everyone will agree that is a modern classic.
I've never don't even know what that is, so I'm going to agree, yes.
It's these two guys. I think one of them is Zac Efron, and they need dates to a wedding, so they pick these two, let's just say, unorthodox women who are going to possibly show them up. And Aubrey Plaza's one of them.
Well, in that case, fair play to her. If she learned it just for this, and she got to that level, stunning.
Yes. Yeah. Will we see more dancing this season? I certainly hope so.
Yeah, that has to be a yes. I'm not going to be satisfied at the end of this if we don't get 2 or 3 dance numbers.
Not every episode, because then you're starting to milk it, but...
No.
Here and there. Keep us in dance numbers. It's the only superhero show where we get dance numbers, so...
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I came and stayed.
Well, before watching the first one, you had no idea there would be a dance number, didn't you?
I'm sure the opening Bollywood number was on the trailers for season 1.
Oh, okay. I don't remember the trailers for season 1. I just remember you seemed quite surprised by it in the when we first talked about it way back. Oh
yeah, I was surprised to see it in a supers show. You know, to me, this is not even a supers show in that sense. They've taken the medium they've taken the genre and done something else with it. As I say right at the start, this is one of the reasons why I'm actually excited by this show, because they have managed to do something completely different. It's like we were saying on the Last Jedi podcast that Chris and I did recently. I picked out what is it? It's the Solo film has got a little parody on YouTube where somebody's taken the trailer and put it over a Beastie Boys track. And I know this isn't going to be the real film and it's not going to happen, but it's like somebody's had an idea, somebody's taken the genre and actually bent it into something new. And I would totally have watched that. I would totally watch that version of Solo if it came out. Legion to me is actually doing that. Taken supers, which... How many super shows are there now? I mean, 5 DC, 4 Marvel, at least. Well, no, actually, there's more than 5 Marvel. There's 8 Marvel. And are there any independents as well? There's hundreds of them, and they're all quite similar. I know they're different. One's dark, one's light. This one's about kids. This one's for grown-ups. This one's adolescents. But they're all pretty much the same. People get powers, they use them. People have moral dilemmas, but they resolve them. People keep secrets from their family. It causes problems, and then they go back. You know, there's nothing new there anymore. And then slap you in the face, kick you with a scissor kick dance move. Legion comes in and gives you something totally different. Breath of fresh air. More the dance numbers, the better.
I've always thought the X-Men as a concept has been... It's very conducive to doing different things, because you have so many different characters from different backgrounds who can do so many different things that you can do, anything. And up until Legion, all we'd really seen in the visual spectrum of X-Men stuff was the films, where, they're blockbusters. Yeah. They're all blockbusters. Was Deadpool before this Legion? Even then, that's, it's an action-adventure blockbuster. And so that Legion is really testing the waters of what you can do with mutants and with the concept of worlds that are full of these bizarre comic booky organisations and things like that. On the other side of the spectrum, you had The Gifted, which was a much more traditional X-Men type show, but even then it kind of opened it up a bit, opened the concept up and took the time to explore stuff that you just wouldn't be able to do in a film. And there's a sense of a bit of courage in the films at the moment, although I'm saying that knowing that this has been kind of undercut. The New Mutants film, which is an asylum-based horror film.
Oh, yeah.
But it's been pushed back to 2019. They're adding characters to it. They're changing plot elements. So they could be taking whatever the original interesting concept is and getting rid of it and replacing it with something far more derivative. Because when have you ever heard about massive reshoots making a film better? You know, Justice League, yeah, I'm sure that improved the experience. Maybe it did, we'll never know. But I think at the end of the day, it's good that some people are willing to take a chance on that. And I mean, I don't know what Legion's budget is. I imagine it's notable. You know, it probably has a fairly decent budget, although there is a kind of I want to say student film quality to it, in the sense that a lot of the locations look pretty slapped together with simplistic elements. You know, they're using a lot of camera trickery to get things to work. It's not a big special effects fest. I mean, the pedigree of actors you've got in it, they've got to command a decent salary because Aubrey Plaza's been about a bit. Jermaine Clement, he's got to be worth a few quid, and so on. Dan Stevens has been kicking about. You know, he won't be massively cheap. But it's interesting that someone greenlit this, you know, and it's encouraging. I mean, maybe we'll get more different kind of outlooks on this kind of universe, so to speak.
It's only shows like this, though, that are even going to keep the genre alive, because to go back to something like Black Lightning, I think Black Lightning is an excellent show. It's also managed to find its place in our current culture and societal problems, so it's hit a time and place certainly very well, but still, if you come out of that setting and look at what they're doing with the plot, it's still superhero takes on supervillain whilst dealing with moral and or family issues. So it's not really pushed the envelope. Gifted, you've brought up, you know, they do actually go into the depths of, again, a bit of what would happen if this really occurred in society. How would people really deal with this? What would it really look like? But again, it's a bunch of kids get powers and go on funky adventures fighting the adults. So neither of them, as good as they may or may not be, they've never really pushed anything. And if we see more and more and more of these shows, more spin-offs, at some point people are going to go, I've seen this. Whereas with Legion, I challenge anybody to say, I've totally seen this before. I mean, fine, you brought up Twin Peaks, but it's not in the same genre. Even then, that was pretty much weird for weird's sake. I think that coined weird for weird's sake, whereas Legion is trying to give you something that connects to the plot. This dance scene occurs because later it might turn into a metaphorical description of a battle. You know, so I think they really are pushing with this, and it will be the survival of the genre as we go into the next decade, and people are still trying to create super films and super TV shows.
I do think it's a show that inspires chat and debate because of its weirdness and the fact that it's a bit off the wall at times. It inspires people to talk about it, and I think that's the kind of thing that keeps these programs going, is if it's still a talking point in the weeks after that it's aired, or the days after it's aired, then I think that's always a good sign for a show.
Yeah, and I think obviously there's room for everything, or every type of thing. I mean, you don't want every superhero show to be Legion. That would just be insane. You'd never sleep. You wouldn't know what was going on at all, ever. And I think with the other ones, it's not so much what they're doing; it's kind of how they're doing it. The reason, you know, the reason I like these shows is because I engage with the characters. First off, if I don't like the characters, I'm not going to like the show. And then you have to put those characters in a plot I'll enjoy. So, therefore, Black Lightning's killing it on that front at the moment. They've got a bunch of characters that I like. They're putting them in situations that I really enjoy, and it's all coming together nicely. The Flash, by contrast, it's characters we'll say I like them. I used to like them, and they put them in situations that I can't be arsed watching, and it just bores me to tears at the moment. So, like, it's doing things with your simple concept, I suppose, or you're easy to latch onto concept. And yeah, I don't think Legion will ever touch audiences on a kind of cultural level, because it isn't trying to make points about race riots in the US or you know, Trump's presidency or anything like that. It's trying to be something a lot more abstract. And I suppose then people can take their own meaning from it. It's because it's not trying to tell you, this is what I mean. I don't know, maybe that's going down the wrong track, but maybe not. No one has any follow-up to that point. So, I don't think there's much else we could mine from this episode. I mean, I can't think of anything else that we haven't really discussed or haven't touched on. Predicting what's going to go on the rest of the season seems pointless. We do have a bit of an objective. We have the idea that the Shadow King wants to find his body. David doesn't want him to find his body, although there's some external force that speaks to him through charades, essentially.
Time travel? Question mark? Question mark?
But it's the weird charades, isn't it? Like the drawing stuff. And you have to guess what it is.
It was good when she just wrote in the air, because you were thinking, yes, thank you. You've got a stick. You can write. You don't have to use shapes here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did think that there was maybe a quicker way that she could have written that. But I like when writers are smart and sort of go, however this time travel question mark works.
Well, could that be symbolic of David's understanding? Like maybe he's latching on to something he already knows.
Potentially.
So the thing is, when it's misshapen, drawings, that's him trying to piece it together, and then when it was written, help him, or whatever it is. Is it help him at the final messages?
Yeah, I think that's the...
Yeah, that's him understanding what this is all about. So, again, it could be his mind clearing as the time goes on.
Easily. It's all interpretive, so there's no reason to think that should be taken straight either.
And that goes back to my point about this show isn't really trying to tell you what it means. It's trying to... It's encouraging you to take your own meaning from it. So it's a different strategy of storytelling.
Yeah.
And it's a valid strategy, because it's it's one of those shows that you can't just thumb through Facebook while you're watching it or whatever. You have to be really paying attention. And even though even I was paying attention, I had to rewind it a couple of times as well, because certain scenes were like, what? And I was still kind of lost when I did that.
Well, it's the other thing that this conversation now makes me think is it makes me want to revise a statement that I've made in a couple of previous podcasts where I've said I need a bit of purpose, and I think that I probably need to qualify that a bit, actually, because the Black Lightning gives me purpose. I do want my science fiction and my super shows to have some value to it, and I was thinking that what I absolutely had to have was some commentary, some playback on society, but I realised that watching Legion, I don't. I do just need it to have its own purpose in some degree. And so with Black Lightning, it's a cultural purpose. It is commenting on society. But with Legion, there is a purpose to it. We're going to present you with a mystery, and through 10 episodes, or 8 episodes, I'm not sure how many it's going to be. It's 10 actually. Yeah, through 10 episodes, you're going to get the chance to work out what it is, have a few guesses, and then by the end of it, we'll give you something, like they did with Season 1. So it does have a meaning, it does have a purpose. It just points out that purpose can be pure entertainment. And I totally get that, and I guess there are other shows that do that, but they don't entertain me. But this one has, so I am going to have to change what I say I need from a show to include something like this. As you say, it's a different art form, but nonetheless giving you something you can latch on to, and as Chris says, wrap your brain round.
Yeah. The one thing I was thinking as I was watching this episode is I would love to see Noah Hawley, or certainly some of the people involved in the show, do the next Doctor Strange film, because this weirdness just lends itself so well to that idea. And I was reading that they're potentially going to use Nightmare, which is a Marvel villain, who infects dreams and stuff like that, hence the name, in the next Doctor Strange film. Don't you think that this kind of aesthetic would fit that perfectly?
It would, to a certain degree, but I am not prepared to believe that they would risk a huge blockbuster film on something going a bit crazy. I think they've done films like Logan, which are, let's do a bit alt-verse, let's do something different, but it wasn't having to stand as part of a group of films. It could actually just be watched by a different group of people, and the production teams wouldn't be so worried. I'm not convinced that they would want to put Doctor Strange 2 into the, we don't really care if the rest of the Marvel audience doesn't come back for this one. This one's different. They're going to want to make sure that there are tie-ins. And so I totally agree with you. I would probably want to watch that film. I can't see they would do it. I can't see they would want to take that risk. I can't see they would want to say, let's do another gamble like we did with Guardians, but let's do a gamble with something we've already established. I think they'll just stick with the, let's have him telling witty jokes in some passable English accent and leave it there. That'll do. Otherwise, just make it in a big action scene. Oh, let's have magic.
Maybe. But I think they would work to a pro forma anyway. It would be, here's the kind of film we want to make, can you make that kind of film? And then, there would be room for creativity in there, so any of the nightmare sequences would be essentially what we see in this every week. But then you would still have the overall plot that makes sense because a blockbuster audience has to enjoy it. It was just a thought that I had, would be the something that would fit Doctor Strange perfectly is this kind of thing.
I can't deny that. And if they would be prepared to do it, I would totally watch it, and I bet I would get decent enjoyment out of it. Maybe they could get him on board just to do the nightmare direction.
Maybe. Yeah. It's a thought. Anyway, that's a massive digression from the point. So, Shadow King wants his body back. David may or may not want him to find his body, depending on what's going on in his own head. So the entire season has that simple objective. Seems simple enough. Every episode is going to be about him trying to find that body, among other stuff. It's the other stuff that will be the interesting part, and the unpredictable part as well. We don't know what the other stuff will be, or even how heavily it will focus on that particular story. So, rest of the season, I think we're all amped for it. I think that's the consensus here, isn't it?
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, does anyone have any kind of final points they want to make before we sign off?
I've got one more point to make.
Is it about
dance numbers, people? Dance numbers.
I think we've established that Aaron quite likes dance numbers in Legion. Just make him the supercut of dance numbers. There must be one on YouTube. If there is, it'll be in the show notes. If not, I will just link to the dance numbers in the show notes. Either way, it will be show notes. Cool. Chris, any final things?
No, that's it for me. I think we've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to say. Enjoyed it.
And we will return in 3 weeks for episode 2, 3, and 4. We'll talk about them all at once. Don't know how that's going to work, considering how long we spent talking about this one, but we'll see. That was our discussion on the opening to Legion Season 2. Thanks to YouTuber 331eRock for the supplied music. If you like what you heard, then hit subscribe on iTunes, YouTube, or any major podcasting app. And join us on the next Kneel Before Pod.